Reactor online. Sensors online. Weapons online. All systems nominal.
Hello everyone, Carrie here with Unicorn Company, and I would have released this on Saturday. Unfortunately though, between my pancreas trying to take me out because I mentioned it, and trying to teach me a lesson for doing so, and my internet being spotty at best recently, I couldn't get this out Saturday. And so, this first week of February, you will be getting a double feature of legendary MechWarrior Force Packs. Today, we will be taking a look at the legendary MechWarriors 2 Force Pack. This Force Pack focuses on several mercenaries, and one, I guess we can call him an independent operator. Because this Force Pack covers notable personalities, I'll be talking about the Mechs and the one vehicle in the Force Pack, as well as their pilots. Before we hop into this, though, I want to remind you to hit those like and subscribe buttons if you like this content, and if you want to if you want to help me make more, you can support us at patreon.com/unicorncompany. Okay, being a tease and shilling over, let's hop into the contents of this Force Pack and talk about the personalities that make these units worth having their own special Force Pack. The first one we'll be covering is the only non-mech warrior in here, Callandre Kell, and her SM5 Field Commander Tank Destroyer variant. Now, Callandre is one of the two people I know the least about in this Force Pack, and she is the commander of the renowned mercenary unit, the Kellhounds, in the Dark Age era, and now finds herself in charge of the Ark Royal Liberty Coalition, which is a faction in the hinterlands, with the Jade Falcons having abandoned their occupation zone in their mad dash to invade Terra alongside Clan Wolf. While she is trained as a mech warrior, Callandre commands a SM1 tank destroyer, which has been modified to be used as a command vehicle as the SM5 Commander. Now, let's take a look at the miniature. The vehicle itself has a main body, which has a centerline main weapon with a small turret over its left side, which can rotate. Overall, the vehicle has a good look to it. The overall layout carries on the tradition of a hovercraft with one big gun, such as the Saladin, but also has some major issues in my opinion, with the largest being the massive windows on the twin cockpits that makes my inner military history nerd start having twitches. Other than that, though, the design of the vehicle is good and overall quality looks to be on par with everything else we've seen come out of the Kickstarter. Looking all the way around the vehicle, I don't see any mold lines, and the entire vehicle is covered in nice, sharp details. The only blemishes I can really find are that the main gun and the smaller one on the turret seem to have some burring, which is normal for the miniatures from what I've seen. And this is more or less a byproduct of the fact that the mold for these has to wrap around the muzzle of the weapons. I can feel the mold lines on the edge of the upper surface of the rear horizontal stabilizers, but they aren't visible. And there does appear to be a shiny spot on the rear door behind the main gun. That may be some glue. It doesn't obscure any of the details, though. The vehicle that Callandre drives is an SM5 Field Commander. It is a combat vehicle, size 2, with a TMM of 4 and has a movement of 22 inches. Hover. It is a striker and comes in at 44 points. The SM5 is capable of doing up to 4 damage at both short and medium ranges with no long-range damage capability, and as a vehicle, of course, has no overheat. It has standard armor and structure of 3 each, and has a number of special abilities with ballistic resistant armor, case, omni, searchlight, tag, and turret 110 and tag. As a note, if Callandre's driving the vehicle, it has a skill of 2 and costs 62 points. This vehicle is, well, it's damn good. And if you're looking for a fast tank with a toolbox of abilities, this is your vehicle. Though it does carry with it a pretty steep cost, and depends more on the vehicle's speed than armor for protection. And since the Mini is the same as the SM1, if you're looking for something a little less pricey, you can go with the SM1 for similar performance, though you do lose most of the special abilities and have a TMM of 3, with 16 inches of movement, you do gain 2 armor and you lower the cost to 42 points. The next unit and pilot we're going to look at in the Force Pack is Marcus Giovani. Marcus is known for piloting his customized Caesar, called Archangel, in command of the mercenary unit Avanti's Angels. The Angels are something of an oddity, as while mercenary commands were being ground up in the crucible that was the clan invasion, they were established and thrived while fighting against the clans. At first as an ad hoc Draconis Combine unit until they eventually left the DCMS after the Battle of La Brea and struck out on their own as mercenaries. The unit had a stint in the Chaos March and generally tried to sit out the FedCom Civil War. The unit would survive the entire Blakist era and found itself being destroyed in the 3130s, having survived almost 100 years. I think we should look at the machine that their commander piloted, though, or the miniature of it, the Caesar Archangel. So, looking at the miniature in general, it looks good, but there are some obvious things that immediately stand out to me. The first of these is that on the mech's left leg, at least on the upper part of the leg, there is a mold line in the center of the leg. It does look like it is easy to remove with either a hobby knife or a sanding stick. If you lean the Mini forward, you can see the clip point for the top of the mech's left leg on the top of the leg, well, the rear of the leg facing up, I guess. The other thing you'll notice is that there's a mold line running across the top of the torso. While also not being egregious, it is there, but should be easy to remove. The massive main torso weapon on the mech's right torso doesn't have any visible issues, though you can feel burring on the front of the weapon. From the mech's left side, the only thing that I can notice is a very slight mold line on the index finger of the left hand, but nothing obvious. When we get to the rear of the Mini, there are two things, one minor, one pretty big. The first of these, and minor, there is a clip point on the back of the upper right leg. The other issue that I can see, which is glaring, is a gap on the back where the mech's right torso meets its center torso, as it is a two-part torso for the Mini. I want to say that the gap might look more like a panel line once painted, but I think this is going to actually require some work, and maybe some green stuff to make it look right. Going over the mech's right side, everything looks good again. Now, I have to say that this is disappointing, as the sculpt is beautiful, and I really like it. And if it wasn't for the gap, I would say that this thing is really good. That gap, though, it feels like a rookie mistake on what was an otherwise amazing miniature. Now, moving on to the non-skill modified version of Archangel, let's see what we're working with. The CES 3R Caesar Archangel is a battle mech size 3 with a TMM of 1 and movement of 8 inches. The mech is a brawler and comes in at 40 points, and if piloted by Marcus, is 56 points at skill 2. The Archangel hits hard with 6 damage at short and medium ranges, with 3 at long, with no overheat value. For protection, it has 6 armor, covering its 3 structure. It has specials of case and rear 2-2 nil, meaning it can actually drop a dasher if it runs up behind it. Not something most mechs can do. Like Pringles, you can't just have one Marcus, though. And so we have the commander of the 2nd Regiment of McCarron's Armored Cavalry, known as Barton's Regiment, who served with distinction until sometime between 3044 and 3050. The Devastator Marcus piloted was captured from General Lester Otto on the world of Marlet. Barton was a MechWarrior who worked his way up through the ranks of the cavalry and saw action against the Davians, Andurians, Canopians, and became a member of the unit after a bar fight with Archie McCarron in 3007. Within 8 years, he went from commanding a lance to commanding the 2nd Regiment of McCarron's Armored Cavalry. I mean, talk about someone who must have been very impressive with a lot of drive and ambition. This faith in him that Archie had was not wasted, though, as he commanded the unit for at least another 30 years, with his crowning achievement being the defeat of Otto in 3044 and capturing a prototype Devastator. Speaking of the Devastator, the specific model is the DVS-2, and Catalyst has done a good job of bringing this machine into plastic. The mech is super clean from the front with a couple of small mold lines on the upper part of the torso which are easily removed. The weapons all have burrs on the front edges of the weapons, which is common and easily taken care of. There are extremely light mold lines on the front of both legs, generally invisible unless you have the miniature under very bright light. Going on to the mech's right, you can feel a mold line hidden in the corner of the lower arm, but you can't see any. In fact, just skipping over to the left side, it is exactly the same in quality. And I would have to say that the way they have hidden the mold lines are very clever. Other than what I have previously mentioned as far as blemishes, the only other ones I can find on the mech are on the rear, on the back of each leg, where there's a clip point near the top of the rear of each leg. Overall, this is a spectacularly done mini, and I would have to say that the model almost makes up for the gap on the Caesar that we looked at earlier. Looking to the Alpha Strike card, Marcus has a standard DVS-2 Devastator. It's a battle mech, size 4 with a TMM of 1 and can move 6 inches. The mech is a juggernaut with a point cost of 54. Of course, if you have Marcus piloting it, it is an astounding skill of 1 at a hefty 87 points. The mech is well armed with damage values of 6 at short, 7 at medium, and 5 at long with no overheat value. The Devastator has armor of 10 and structure of 4 with a special of rear 110 and no other specials. While this does make the mech susceptible to being destroyed by an ammunition explosion on a critical hit, it is also going to take your opponent a bit to chew through that 10 armor, making it something they need to focus down very quickly. So we're now down to the last 2 units that come in this force pack. The first one we'll be looking at is Jeremiah Rose and his CGR-3K Charger. Jeremiah is a native of Northwind who joined Comstar and was assigned to Luthien. While he was stationed there, he had to watch the battle from the cockpit of his shootist as the clans attacked that planet, only allowed to take action to protect the HPG station if it had come to it. Instead, though, he could only listen over the radio as the DCMS and Mercenaries defended the world. He then found himself on Tukiet, where he ended up fighting against Clan Wolf. After Tukiet, and with the revelations that Comstar had not been neutral in the conflict, he found his way into the mercenary life, where he had the mission of fighting against the clans. In the end, after 15 years, Jeremiah and his unit of the Black Thorns found their end on the world of Galadon, the victims of a Word of Blake bioweapon. Rose piloted the Charger during the early years of the unit from 3054 until 3057 when he moved to piloting a Warhawk. For obvious reasons, Catalyst chose to include the Charger in this force pack as it fits the mechs coming out in the Kickstarter. So let's take a look at the miniature of the Charger. Overall, the miniature is really good looking and accurate to the stats for the Mini, with the LRM launcher integrated into the mech's torso in a way that feels natural, as it hasn't just been grafted onto the mech, but instead the torso panels have been used as missile doors. This is a really nice touch and makes it feel like a factory change to the mech and not just something done by some mech warrior in the field with an arc welder. Now, looking at the quality from the front, everything is pretty clean. You can see where they have hidden the mold lines on the shoulder pads, which will cause a really hard edge on the inside of that shoulder pad, but they will be easy to clean up. There is also a minor mold line on the bottom of the mech's right arm, which you can see as it has the arm raised in a pose that makes it look like it's running. Going around the mech to the sides and rear, everything is very well detailed and super clean to the point where I don't even feel that I need to take time describing everything, as the details are clean as well as the cast, with the only mold line or clip points that are obvious to me at least, being one that runs across the top of the thigh-mounted jump jet on the left leg. That looks super easy to clean up. And the only thing I can say on this one is bravo, Catalyst. Y'all did this one really well. So looking at the Alpha Strike card for the mech, it is a Charger CGR-3K, which is a battle mech size 4 with a TMM of 2 and a movement of 10 jump. The mech is a skirmisher with a point value of 45, unless you have Giant Jeremiah piloting it at skill 2, which jumps it up to 63 points. For damage values, the 3K does 4 at short, 5 at medium, and 2 at long, and doesn't have an overheat value. The mech does have 6 armor and 4 structure, with specials of case and indirect fire 1. I have to admit, I'm not a big fan of the Charger 3K. It is interesting in Alpha Strike, but with armor and structure that is low, and the point cost as high as it is, there are more capable mechs that occupy the same space on the tabletop that might hit a little less hard, but will generally have more armor or structure, and generally come in a little bit less in points. Now, the final character and mech that we have today is Abdouin Ricol. Ricol? I never figured out how to pronounce that last name, actually. And his Marauder, the Red Hunter. Now, in a way, though, this isn't just his Red Hunter, but can be either his mech or the mech of his ancestor, Hassid Ricol, who he takes the name Red Hunter from. To understand Abdouin, we have to understand a bit about Hassid. Hassid first showed up in the universe in Decision at Thunder Rift, which was the first book of the Great Death Legion trilogy, while Ricol would show up from time to time in the BattleTech universe. He was a member of the Black Dragon Society, a secret traditionalist group within a Draconis Combine that fought against the liberal reforms of Theodore Carida. He was a duke, specifically Duke of Rodrigo, a world in the then Rosselhog military district of the Draconis Combine, which would end up being part of the Free Rosselhog Republic, then eventually part of the Hell's Horses occupation zone during the Il Clan era. Hassid piloted a red and black Marauder as part of what was called the Red Hunter Group. Over time, the Red Hunter Group, and specifically Hassid himself, had a hand in influencing or inciting several events throughout the history of the Inner Sphere, including being a foil for Grayson Carlisle on a number of occasions, and inciting incidents between the Draconis Combine and its clan neighbors, and even groups within the border of the Combine such as the Azami and the Nova Cats after their adjournment and return to the Inner Sphere. Hassid's involvement in the incidents involving the Ghost Bears would seem to be driven by one overarching goal, his desire to return to Rodrigo, which would never happen. In fact, in a message uncovered from the late Duke, he stated that he had no riches to bestow, no lands, not even a title, but a mockery of one, a flimsy shell from decades ago when my title and my name brought fear to many. This is what sets us up for Abdouin. In the Il Clan era, Abdouin is a member of the Laborer caste, or was a member of the Laborer caste in the Rosselhog Dominion, who had allegedly earned the rank of MechWarrior with the Ghost Bears and with the Hell's Horses at one point. Though given the second clan's more traditional beliefs, I'm inclined not to believe that without further evidence, and was raised on stories of his ancestors in the Black Dragon Society. After Grey Monday, he would be, shall we say, rescued from the Dominion by the Black Dragons and told he was the descendant of Hassid Ricol, where he assumed the last name and set up shop in the Barrens, facilitating cross-border raids into the Hell's Horses occupation zone. It is believed to reclaim his ancestral home of Rodrigo, though this is unknown. In that time, he has modified his Marauder with clan advanced Inner Sphere equipment, and Catalyst has brought both of the machines that he and his ancestor piloted together in one mini. Now, as far as that claim, the original Marauder, as far as we know, is a standard MAD-3R, and so the standard Marauder Mini easily stands in for Hassid's mech, and this one comes with the appropriate dorsal gun for that. It also comes with the dorsal gun for the Red Hunter, which is a Clan Ultra Autocannon 10 with a multi-barrel gun like that, though. I would argue that this could also be used for a stand-in for the Project Phoenix Marauder built for House Davian with the rotary autocannon 5. Just a thing to keep in mind. The overall quality of the miniature is quite good, and it even has some details in the PPC housings themselves to differentiate themselves from just normal laser lenses. Looking at the Marauder from the front or from any angle, I'm not seeing any mold lines, which I have to say is quite a feat, as you would expect to find one or two somewhere on the Mini, so I think they have gone out of their way to hide them in corners. As far as any visual blemishes you can see, that would be the clip points on the Mini, which are on the back of the both upper legs, and one on the torso in the upper left section behind the pod on the top of the torso. It's like the heat sink pod or whatever. It's right behind there. As far as the dorsal guns, the one to make the MAD3R does have a mold line running down the length of the AC5 on the top and bottom, but appears to be easily removed. The Red Hunter main gun, which will have 3 barrels, does have a mold line along the top, which is easy to remove, and there isn't a visible one on the bottom, as it is hidden in the corners of the support that run the length of the weapon. My only complaint with the dorsal mounted weapons is they don't want to sit flush in the mount and require a bit of pressure. Alternatively, a bit of shortening of the peg that goes into the mounting hole for them could be shortened quite easily. Now, let's move on to the Alpha Strike card for this mech, the Marauder Red Hunter 3146. This unit is a battle mech size 3 with a TMM of 2 and movement of 10. It's a juggernaut with a point cost of 44, and if being piloted by Abdouin at skill 1 is 71 points. It does 5 damage at short range, 4 at medium, with 2 at long, and doesn't have an overheat value. The mech has armor of 7 and structure of 3, and for specials it has ballistic resistant armor and case 2, making it immune to ammo explosions and a bit tougher than its armor would lead you to believe. So first of all, what do I have to say about this force pack? Well, it's pretty good. The force pack does run $34.99, which averages out to about $7 a mini, but you can get it from Fortress once it is available from them for $26.24, which will bring it to like $5.25 a mech. The vehicle too, but that's not bad. The minis are of an overall good quality, with that one glaring exception on the Caesar, though I'm hoping that's a fluke that made it through quality control and isn't something on each of these minis. If you have gotten a Caesar from this force pack for yourself, let me know if it has that gap. I'm curious if this is something that ran through the whole production line, or if this is just something that maybe I got a bad one. I really like the variety that we have here. I am worried, though, that we are reaching a level of Marauder saturation, as much like the Nova, I find myself ending up with more and more Marauders. I think once you have a certain number, they start multiplying on their own. So overall, yeah, it's a good force pack. It has some interesting units, including our first Dark Age vehicle, and also a tiny bit of customization built into that Marauder. I hope you enjoyed the video, and before I go, I want to say a few things. First, I want to let you all know that we still have slots left for Western Assault. I will include information for that in the description. I also want to mention my sponsor, Fortress Miniatures and Games. They have been supporting us for a while now, and I'm really grateful for it. And I can tell you that not only do they have some of the best selection, for your BattleTech needs at their website, fortressminiaturesandgames.com, but they are also big supporters of the game and are a sponsor for Western Assault and also for events going on at the Richmond Open, which will include an Alpha Strike tournament as well as a Classic tournament, along with several other events. With that, I think we're done for this one. So I thank you very much for watching, and this is Carrie signing off. I want to thank all of our patrons and sponsors. Starting off, we have at the rank of Captain, Sarah. Then we have our Mercenary Review Bonding Commission representative, also known as our sponsor, Fortress Miniatures and Games. We then have our lieutenants, Boy in a Box, Haley, and Nathan. Our sergeants, Blind Zen Archer, Gus, Faz, and Steven. And let's not forget our cadets, NB Kaiju, Jamie, and Scott. Thank all of you for supporting the podcast and the channel. And if you would like to support us, and you can go to patreon.com/unicorn company, where we have a number of tiers. One might just fit you. So thank you all very much and have a good day.